charged with the July 18 murder of a mother and her 2 children in Mavis Bank, St. Andrew. Murder accused and a member of the well-known Coke family from Tivoli Gardens in West Kingston, Lanchester Coke, has been denied bail. Outgoing president of the Jamaica Agricultural Society is appealing for support for farmers being impacted by the prevailing drought conditions. And in international news this morning, North Korea returns U.S. troops slain in the Korean War. The details coming up next.
The following hurricane tip is brought to you by JHA Associates Limited. Cover all windows and door openings with shutters or other shielding materials to protect them from high winds. The preceding hurricane tip was brought to you by JHA Associates Limited. For your shutter needs, telephone 929-5648.
Catch the first news of the day. The news at 6 on Nationwide 90 FM.
And now to the details. A woman and her brother have been charged with the July 18 murder of a woman and her 2 children in Top Hill Mavis Bank in rural St. Andrew. Their 27-year-old Jamelia Leslie, a lab technician quality control supervisor, and a 26-year-old Javon Leslie, a construction worker, both of Guava Ridge Mavis Bank in St. Andrew. The siblings have been charged with 3 counts of murder, burglary, and arson. They are to appear in the Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Court in Halfway Tree on Thursday, August 2. 29-year-old Kashif Jackson and her 2 children, 23-month-old Aver Williams and 7-year-old Aranza Williams, were found dead in a house just over a week ago. Jackson had been stabbed multiple times. The post-mortem examination revealed that the children died of smoke inhalation. 4 firearms and more than 300 rounds have been seized in 2 separate operations in police divisions currently under a state of public emergency. 3 firearms and 224 rounds of ammunition were seized in the St. James Police Division, while 1 firearm and 77 rounds of ammunition were seized in the St. Catherine North Police Division. Reports from the Constabulary's Corporate Communications Unit, CCU, are that a special operation was carried out yesterday in Gordon Crescent, Granville, St. James. An unoccupied house was searched where 2 Smith & Wesson pistols along with 195 rounds of ammunition were found in a lunch bag. A further search of the property resulted in the seizure of a Ruger 9mm pistol along with an additional 29 rounds of ammunition along the perimeter fence. No one was arrested in connection with the find. In the St. Catherine North Police Division, a Glock pistol and 77 rounds of ammunition were seized following police operations. The operations were carried out between Wednesday and Thursday of this week in Orangefield in Newerton, St. Catherine. A man and a woman were taken into custody in connection with the seizure. Murder accused and a member of the well-known Coke family from Tivoli Gardens in West Kingston, Lanchester Coke, has been denied bail. He was denied bail when he appeared in the corporate area gun court yesterday. Coke was remanded despite an appeal that he be released on humanitarian grounds. Coke is among several people who are in custody in connection with the murder of Denham Town-based gunman Patrick Davis. A bail application was made on his behalf earlier this week by attorney Carolyn Chuck. Lanchester and his 6 co-accused were denied bail a few weeks ago. Coke was hurt in a motor vehicle crash on Tuesday. He was hurt when 2 vehicles which were transporting prisoners crashed and injured several of the inmates. Coke reportedly received injuries to his neck, legs, and back. Indicom is probing the accident. Outgoing president of the Jamaica Agricultural Society, JAS, Norman Grant, is making an appeal for support for farmers being impacted by the prevailing drought conditions buffeting the island. Mr. Grant made the appeal while noting that this year's drought is similar to a previous dry spell, which resulted in $1 billion worth of losses for the agriculture sector.
2 to 3 years ago, we had a similar event, and then it cost the agriculture sector close to $1 billion. It was, one of the worst droughts we had in close to 100 years. I think that this one is coming close to that, the one that we're experiencing, and in particular the impact on parishes such as Portland, St. Catherine, and Clarendon. In our view, the JS will certainly result in some impact on the agricultural sector.
The outgoing JS president is also reiterating his call for a crop insurance system for farmers. Mr. Grant says that should include coverage for losses sustained during a drought.
It is going to be very important for the government through the Ministry of Agriculture and RADA to implement a support program, distribution of water, black tanks, and any other relevant support. This drought brings into sharp focus the need for a national crop insurance scheme and a national crop insurance program to support farmers. And not only should it cover, rain and hurricane, but drought has been proven to be equally as devastating.
He notes that the nation's economy is heavily dependent on the agriculture sector. That's why Mr. Grant says he's concerned about what he believes to be too little state investment in the sector.
And what continues to amaze me is that of total national budget, the agricultural sector is getting less than 1.2% of the national budget. We in the sector want to see a line of credit of at least $1 billion, a revolving line of credit of $1 billion at 4 to 5% to fund the sector. $1 billion as well should be placed in the Ministry of Agriculture budget to support rural farm roads maintenance on an annual basis.
Norman Grant, outgoing president of the Jamaica agriculture sector, speaking yesterday with Nationwide News. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says it's important that small island developing states, like Jamaica, be given the chance to lobby global powers on issues including how they may benefit more from the global cannabis industry. Mr. Holness made the point in response to a question from a member of the audience at a town hall meeting in Cape Town, South Africa. The Prime Minister was asked why Jamaica isn't exporting ganja and fully exploiting the multi-million-dollar industry.
Because the opportunities that we would like to exploit our own resources, which we know from how long ago that this plant has medicinal values, that we are not going to be able to exploit that. Other countries are going to be able to exploit that very quickly. That is the nature of the global order, which is why small countries like Jamaica need to always have a voice at the table to bring these issues to the leaders who, this is not on your radar. This is not a matter that is of concern to them.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness addressing a town hall meeting in Cape Town, South Africa yesterday. He also told the audience that Jamaica is making efforts to exploit the global cannabis industry, but he says that the island cannot afford to offend international narcotics laws, which international financial institutions pay close attention to. There is some degree of worry among micro, small and medium-sized enterprises, MSMEs, in light of the fluctuations in the foreign exchange market. President of the MSME Alliance, Donovan Wignall, says while he understands there will be fluctuations in the foreign exchange market, the reality is that the movements will impact the costs of manufacturing inputs. Mr. Wignall says he is aware that this may cause some concerns about the cost of living for the everyday trader and the country at large.
The reality on the ground is that things are going to cost more, prices are going to be inflated, and generally in Jamaica, when the dollar moves like that, the conception publicly is that, we are going to have challenges. Psychologically, when the dollar moves, certain things are going to be expected. For example, the prices in the supermarkets are going to go up. Anything that involves the utilization of U.S. dollars to purchase, those prices directly will be impacted and the prices move immediately.
Mr. Wignall says while he hasn't canvassed his members, based on history, the concerns are not unwarranted.
We can always revert to history for this particular nuance as far as it's concerned the dollar. Historically, when the dollar moves, prices of everything moves, including fuel, which touches every single thing. So therefore, the concerns are not unwarranted.
Donovan Wignall, president of the Micro, Small and Medium-Sized Enterprise Alliance, speaking yesterday with Nationwide News. He says the movement in the exchange rate and the impact it is likely to have on prices is of great concern to the sector, especially because of the size of their operations and their vulnerability to shocks. The concerns being expressed by the MSME sector comes amid calls by the opposition People's National Party for the government to explain the fluctuation in the value of the dollar. However, Minister without portfolio in the Finance Ministry, Favour Williams, speaking at a post-cabinet press briefing earlier this week, said the movements in the exchange rate are good for the thrust in the local economy and provide better stimulation for businesses. Education Minister Will Reid says the total monetary allocation to publicly funded schools across the country will be increased for the next academic year. Minister Reid says that this comes with a change in the policy on non-mandatory contributions. He says the subventions to schools for desk and chairs, computer labs, and the provision of meals, among other things, have been increased. Minister Reid says high schools will be getting almost $1 billion worth of extra funding.
The total non-establishment staff support to be provided to high schools for the upcoming academic year is $8,399,223,635. This represents an increase of some $435,807,270. The operational and social grants to high schools will total $3.767 billion. This is an increase of nearly $50 million. Allocations for staff and support has been increased by more than $317 million.
The Education Minister says almost $300 million more will be pumped into the Career Advancement Program CAP. He says the increases fall in line with the Ministry's push to streamline education from the early childhood stage to grade 13. Mr. Reid says there have also been increases in the subventions to primary schools.
In regards to infant all-age primary and junior high schools, they receive similar grants as high schools, but also receive financial support for clerical assistance, environmental wardens, water, internet, janitorial support, and security grants, as well as support for cooks and canteens. The total allocation to be made for the upcoming school year for these schools across all 6 regions is $4,277,617,700. The first allocation has already been sent to schools and will assist to prepare for the upcoming start of the 2018-29 academic year in September.
Will Reid, Education Minister, he was speaking at a post-cabinet media briefing at Jamaica House on Wednesday. And in international news this morning, North Korea has returned remains believed to be of 55 U.S. troops killed during the Korean War, bringing renewed hope to families who have waited decades for closure. The returns of the remains brought to a U.S. base in South Korea is the latest move in the cautious diplomacy between Washington and Pyongyang. The repatriation was agreed at the June summit between U.S. President Donald Trump and North Korea's Kim Jong-un. It is hoped more will follow. President Donald Trump's former lawyer says his client knew in advance of a June 2016 meeting between his aides and a Russian delegation that offered to help his campaign. Michael Cohen says he was present when Mr. Trump's eldest son, Donald Trump Jr., informed his father of the meeting. He's reportedly willing to state this to the special counsel investigation into alleged Russian election meddling. Mr. Trump denies knowing in advance about the meeting. And that's your news at 6. I'm Tony Thomas.